Hello again, viewers, and welcome back. We're back with Ko to show off the first legitimately difficult battle in the game, the battle with Smug Mysterious Guy, also known as Sho. The Sho's specialty is Wing Borgs, and his partner Garuda is a modified Anubis Wing, one of the most powerful Borgs in the tribe, if not one of the most powerful Borgs in the game.
I'm gonna win.
He's more agile than most of the other Borgs you fought so far, which puts you at a disadvantage if you try to fight him at long range. However, trying to melee him is generally an even worse idea. He's that combination of fast and strong that's terrifying when it's turned against you. And you can see normal ninja's almost down, and has barely managed to chip Garuda at all.
Go! Is that all you can do?
Normal Knight here doesn't stand much of a chance, but we still have to try. Normal Knight is restricted to short-range attacks, and while the shield can help you close the gap, it's no help if you're off target, or if you get knocked off balance by another attack.
Not yet!
And after all that, Normal Knight only lands one attack. Our Revolver Gunman manages to fare a little better, being a specialist at long range, but Garuda's explosive charge shot still gives him the advantage, as Revolver Gunman's dodge isn't long enough to actually get away from the explosion, even if he manages to avoid the initial shot. You can see an example of that right there.
Now! Yes! Wow!
Even good old G-Red has trouble with Garuda. And while he can cheese him by getting behind one of the larger obstacles and nicking at him with charge attack G-Buster, if Joe manages to knock you away from the oil drum or the tree stumps, you've probably had it. This fight isn't impossible your first time through, but unless the top of your game is fairly high, this is probably going to be your result. And unlike other legitimately difficult fights in the game, this one stays difficult even on later playthroughs, because your GF energy is still so low. Though let's see how we fare with a little more selection. The tribe winner for this vote was Hero Borgs, and I also rolled the Bug tribe into them because both tribes are so small. I'll be opening with a force consisting of Poison Worm and Planet Hero.
I'm gonna win.
All of Poison Worm's attacks are capable of poisoning enemies, and poison enemies take damage similar to a Vampire Knight, in that they slowly lose HP. Unfortunately, Poison Worm doesn't get to show that off. Let's see if Planet Hero can do a little better. You can see his air dash is fairly long, and his X attack size change makes all of your attacks do more damage. While getting bigger does make you less resistant to stun, it doesn't change how much damage you take. So with the size changing heroes, your best defense is to use their great offense. Already he's doing better than Ko's team. And even when not at full size, he's strong enough to knock Garuda around.
Is that the best that you can do? Is that all you got?
In this fight, if you manage to beat Garuda, Sho brings in his next Borg, Blade Wing. While Blade Wing is in some ways less powerful than Garuda, in other ways he's more dangerous. He replaces Garuda's explosive shot with a blade toss attack, which is easier to dodge than the explosion, but far more damaging if you get hit by it.
What?
So even if you manage to defeat Garuda, you might not have enough left in the tank to take on Blade Wing too.
Is that the best that you can do? Yeah! Now!
You can see that was just one hit from the blade toss, and I'm already at less than half health. If he manages to catch me again, I'd probably lose.
Is that the best that you can do?
Fortunately, he doesn't.
Alright.
Sorry about this little pause here. I was just savoring my victory. I let the full animation play for a data capsule, because I was hoping it was a capsule for Garuda. Still, Blade Wing isn't bad.
Yeah.
And with that done, we'll save, and then take our first boss battle. This time I'll be using a force consisting of Clawworm and Metal Hero. And I just kind of scan through the partners before settling on Pikaru. Unlike Clawworm plays similarly to Poison Worm, though instead of poison projectiles, its specialty is to fill the screen with damaging strings. When they have spikes like that, any Borg that touches a string takes damage. And the strings can extend a fairly long way.
Did I do that?
You see that his ammo refills when the string disappears. And while Poison Worm didn't get a chance to show it off, Wormborgs are surprisingly adept at melee attacks. As you may have noticed, the enemy does not have a GF energy bar for this fight. That's because in boss battles, the objective is to defeat a specific Borg rather than every Borg that comes in. And in this case, it's the Flame Dragon. Bosses generally have respawning lackeys, but while you can take them out to increase your score, it's generally better to just focus on the boss and take them down, as you don't generally get prizes from boss battles. Poor Clawworm generally isn't suited for giant Borgs like this, that aren't bothered by little bits of damaging attacks. Fortunately, Metal Hero is. While he's not that great in civilian mode, once you activate Metal Setup, he's practically tailor-made to taking out slow-moving big Borgs like this. You see, that was a huge chunk of damage, and all I have to do is get in position for one more time, and that's game. Aside from that X attack, Metal Hero is restricted to melee attacks only. And as you see, most boss battles give you 100 GF energy, rather than the standard 10 for most other fights. And we get a little more plot after this, including an introduction to our true enemy, the Galactic Emperor. And after that, we start Chapter 2. I'll just save and cut here as I check out the battles and do a little force editing. I decided to give Tsutomu another spin. This is actually our first introduction to the Death Force bodyguards, though they come in later in the fight. My force consists of Roach, Alien Insect, and Gold Hero. And Roach is the worst Borg in the game. It's slow, it has no dash, it only has one jump, and its only attack is a projectile bomb, a proximity bomb, with a rather small range and a long timer, so bad placement leaves you helpless. Through some miracle, I actually managed to defeat one of the Death Borgs. Though Roach doesn't have much left. And with that one bomb out in the middle of nowhere, I can't do anything. Fortunately, Alien Insect is not nearly as terrible. He has 4 jumps, although that he's not as good in the air as it would lead you to believe. Though his bug bombs do decent damage. And his shield does protect against attacks somewhat, but it's so small, it's even more difficult to count on than normal knights. He also has another ability. His X attack is the Insect Scope. A special type of attack that makes a sphere that hangs around, and any projectile that passes through it is made smaller and weaker. You'll generally use it kind of like cover, in that you'll duck behind it so enemy shots pass through, and then jump out so your shots aren't weakened by it. It has no effect on melee or non-projectile attacks, though. So I'm gonna have to get up close and personal. Or at least not use the Insect Scope against that Omega type. Now that there's a Spike Knight. And while in ball form, they lose their defensive capabilities. And they can't really do much in roll around, so I just kind of ignore it for now. Though you do want to be careful not to lose track of it, as that attack does deal a good amount of damage. Even if it is really unwieldy to use. As you can see, the Spike Knight can't do anything but roll around. You may have saw the shield protected me from some of the attacks, and if it hadn't, I probably would have lost Alien Insect there. Though now we're finally introduced to the bodyguards, and that would be Ruby and Sapphire Knight. Ruby Knight specializes in bombs, while Sapphire Knight specializes in beams. Both laser projectiles and an actual beam attack. They managed to defeat Alien Insect, and Gold Hero shows up. And Gold Hero is similar to Metal Hero in that he starts in a weaker civilian mode, and when your X attack is charged, you can use Gold Setup, enabling you to basically drown the stage in lasers. Especially when you activate Power Burst mode. You can see Ruby Knight's shield manages to block all my shots, but with some setup from Tsutomu, my beam gets through.
We showed them. Well,
So that's game for us.
I don't know.
Who was that indeed, and why were they watching our battle? Oh well, I'm sure it'll come up in time. We'll do another training battle here. This time I use Usagi. And use a force consisting of Venom Worm and Cyber Hero.
Let's have fun.
A Venom Worm is basically a larger poison worm. In that he's bigger, has more HP, and his attacks deal more damage. Oh, I just got hit by a barrier, so my projectiles won't do much. Fortunately, as you've seen, worms are fairly adept at melee attacks. Which means I'm not helpless, unlike Deathborg Delta was. Poison Worm is still really slow. Though his poison is fairly useful. And again, I'm kind of focusing on mana because I don't want her healing Kakeru. If I could attack in the right direction, though, that would be nice. Oh, and I immediately turn on Pop Honey, though she manages to get me with Mr. Reverse Bolt. Once you're hit with those musical notes, you start spinning uncontrollably. And attacking accurately is practically impossible. Fortunately, it doesn't affect your movement, so you can still dodge attacks fairly reliably. But even melee attacks spin off in random directions, so you're practically helpless until that wears off. It's the most effective debilitating Borg in the game, and as such I'm surprised Mana has one. Although fortunately she's down to her partner, so it's just one more Borg, and then I won't have to worry about Kakeru standing up. And while the Worm is surprisingly adept at melee attacks, Shuriken Ninja is better. And as such, this is probably the end. I do manage to get one last poison in before being destroyed, fortunately. And that leads into Cyber Hero, who is basically Street Fighter's Ryu. He has the Hadouken, the Shinku Hadouken, and the Tatsumaki Senpyugaku. And though I don't show it, he also has the Shoryuken uppercut. In his description, it even says that no one has ever seen him without his mask. So for all we know, it basically is a gacha board that looks like Ryu.
Alright! Nice combo!
We've lost.
I'm not talking to you.
Oh, come on, Mana, it's only training. Oh, and we get a normal ninja. Not the most inspiring of prizes, but every bit helps. Oh, well, down to the last fight of the update. And I decided to let Mana show her stuff. I'll be using Alien Worm and Jet Hero.
Let's have fun!
Have no fear. I am here.
I'll give you...
And like Venom Worm, Alien Worm is the bigger version of Claw Worm. And his attack, he's bigger, he has more HP, and his attacks do more damage. And this time we're fighting Met and Tetsuya. Met is one of those commanders who... his specialty isn't a tribe, instead it's an idea. Much like Mana, though instead of helping his ally, Met's specialty is hindering his opponents. And his wire gunner is able to grab Borgs and just kind of pull them along with his wire shot, as you've seen earlier in the fight. And Tatsuya's specialty, Musha Borgs, are generally close-range specialists. Seeing as he probably beat me at close range, I tend to focus most of my efforts on Met. Especially when Met grabs me with his helicopter and pulls me away. Fortunately, that just puts me in position to do that. Now, if I weren't just hanging helplessly, I'd be attacking. Oh, and Met's already down to his partner, Shijima. Oh. Yeah, it's not much fun being on the opposite end of an arrow ninja. And we're already starting to see our enemies use Power Burst against us. Unfortunately, Clawworm isn't quite helpless when pinned, except when the enemy is in your melee range, but outside of where the arrows will let you go. So that's the end of Alien Worm. And now for Jet Hero. The Jet Hero plays more like a wing Borg. His dashing attack is kind of unwieldy, though it does a lot of damage. And his charge attack, the Power Scope, is essentially the opposite of Alien Insect's Insect Scope, in that it makes any projectile that passes through it more damaging. You do need to be careful to make sure your enemies don't get the advantage of it. So you'll kind of use it like reverse cover, dodging away when your enemy fires and popping back behind so that your shots get the benefit. And the effects do stack, so the more scopes you've got out, the bigger the shots become. You can quite easily make shots bigger than most Borgs. Though larger shots do move more slowly, so it can be kind of difficult to connect if you're far away from your enemy like this. I do kind of want to use my range advantage against Musashi, but eventually I decided to just go all out. Seeing as it is a 2-to-1 fight, even if Mana is down to her partner now. And also, like Insect Scope, it has no effect on non-projectile attacks. Fortunately, with judicious use of dive attacks, the victory is ours.
We showed them! We all did it!
Better luck next time.
They were impressive at first.
And with that, I've shown off every bug, and most of the heroes. And we even get a Shijima capsule. As a prize. Though it looks like Met's still a bit of a sore loser. I'll show off Star Hero in a later video, seeing as he's really just a modified planet hero. Thanks for watching.